With 7 television series, 13 movies, and countless books and comics, Star Trek has made an enormous cultural impact over the past 5 decades, being one of the longest and most well-known science fiction franchises of all time. I mean, even if you've never seen one episode of Star Trek, you know what Star Trek is. You know what it is.
I've heard of Star Trek.
That's great, Robot. Fantastic. You get an A. Gene Roddenberry was the creator of the Star Trek universe, including the original series and Star Trek The Next Generation. The New York Times described Roddenberry as a tall, soft-spoken man with a silver mane and a dazzling imagination. An imagination that inspired fans who went on to create things like cell phones, ion propulsion, and personal computers. Personally, I became a fan of Star Trek when I was a little girl watching The Next Generation with my family. For the first time, I got to see a working model of what emotionally stable adults would be like and how they would deal with their problems through generally talking it out. And the thing that's so interesting and unique about Star Trek, the thing that sets it apart from all of the other science fiction out there, was the fact that Gene Roddenberry didn't have this dark, dystopian, apocalyptic vision of mankind's future. He saw a future where mankind is going to mature, we're going to be seeking out new civilizations, and these ideas broke new ground. Star Trek is about more than fancy futuristic gadgets and gizmos. It's about the future of human society and social evolution. And that's what Gene Roddenberry was really excited to talk about, because he believed that humanity now, as it stands, we're really just children. And in the 24th century, he believes that we could evolve to be more mature. Then we'll be able to get rid of all of these problems that we have now. We'll have a resource-based economy. Material possessions will no longer be the driving force in our lives, and how humans eventually will just work to better themselves without being told to.
We did not accept the myth that the television audience has an infantile mind. As a matter of fact, we decided to risk the whole show on that premise. We believe that the often ridiculed mass audience is sick of this world's petty nationalism and all its old ways and old hatreds, and that people are not only willing but anxious to think beyond those petty beliefs that have for so long kept mankind divided.
Gene had to make 2 separate pilots for Star Trek before NBC was like, yes, we're going to put this in the fall television schedule of 1966. So let me contextualize the times this show was born into. This was 1966, right in the middle of a decade that has some of the most sweeping social changes of all time in America. And Gene Roddenberry wanted to help push those social changes through using the science fiction in his show to explore themes that were going on in the here and now. You had the Cold War, which was lingering on with Russia. You had a war in Vietnam going on, as well as at home, the civil rights and the women's rights movements. So there's a lot of things going on in the 60s. And so now, on top of that, you have this show coming out, which is going out of its way to show a racially diverse crew of people working together in harmony. This was unheard of. You've got a Russian crew member in Chekhov, you have a Japanese crew member, you have a black female crew member, and that was like really unheard of. Gene Roddenberry pushed to have a black girl on the show because the studios did not want her on there, and he finally got his way, thank goodness. They even have a straight up alien on the crew, okay? So not only are humans getting along with themselves, they're also getting along with other races of beings in the universe. In fact, Star Trek is so progressive that it had the first interracial kiss on television, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was also a fan of the show, and at one point even encouraged Nichelle Nichols about the importance of her now iconic character of Lieutenant Uhura.
Oh yeah? Will they do any robot-human kisses?
They did in The Next Generation, but that's in the 90s. And it was more than just kissing.
From you, Data, you are fully functional, aren't you?
Of course, but...
How fully?
In every way, of course.
That's exactly what I hoped.
What was it?
I'll tell you when you're older.
If you read science fiction, the more you read it, the more you realize that you and the universe are part of the same thing. Science still knows practically nothing about the real nature of matter, energy, dimension, or time, and even less about those remarkable things called life and thought. But whatever the meaning and purpose of this universe, you are a legitimate part of it. And since you are part of the all that is, part of its purpose, there is more to you than just this brief speck of existence. You are just a visitor here in this time and this place, a traveler through it. What a difference that makes. As a traveler here, it no longer crushes you that this world is not always fair or orderly or understandable. Your passport allows you to fix what you can, to love, to refuse to take part in ugliness. But meanwhile, you are delighted that this is such a varied, colorful, exciting place. As a traveler, you're not here to judge, but to experience. You begin to feel a new affection for the life forms here. You no longer feel threatened that some may be greater or lesser than you. It's only important that you've been given this marvelous opportunity to enjoy this trip, to learn from it, and in my case, write about it. Perhaps you know where I'm leading. On a trip like this, and it is a trip, its loveliness is not in the sameness of people and things, but in their incredible variety. Eventually, this led me to the Star Trek statement, IDIC, infinite diversity from infinite combinations. Thank whatever created us. We are different, each of us and everything around us. To the end of time, if it ever does end, no combination will ever come up quite the same. That's quite a travel package. All of this is how Star Trek began, and it's also something of what it's about. I am an alien, and so are you. And yet, and this is the loveliest thing of all, somehow we're also part of each other and part of everything that is.
So what made Gene Roddenberry a greater creator? He was pushing social boundaries of the here and now throughout his sci-fi storytelling. He's promoting tolerance and diversity, that humans are humans no matter what your race, color, creed, or sexual orientation is. He also promoted higher thinking, working together, and showcasing an evolved human race for us to aspire to.
Because it says it's not all over, we're not going to go up in smoke, we're going to make it. Because it says the human adventure has just begun.
Gene Roddenberry stated that Star Trek was an attempt to say that humanity will reach maturity and wisdom on the day that it begins not just to tolerate, but to take a special delight in differences in ideas and differences in life forms. If we cannot learn to actually enjoy those small differences and to take a positive delight in those small differences between our own kind here on this planet, then we do not deserve to go out into space and meet the diversity that is almost certainly out there.
So he believed that aliens really existed.
Yes. Because they do. Because it would be a waste of a universe if there's no other life out there.
Well, I can confirm that they do.
Thanks, Space Brain. But nobody likes to know it all. Also, be sure to check out Trekonomics, a book about the economics of Star Trek, exploring the idea of post-scarcity and what a world without money might look like.
A world without money. That'll never happen.
Robot, you just wait 300 years. You just wait and see, all right? Everything's gonna be different.
You're a communist.
You know, I just think about people in the future and like them just looking back at us with our stupid little grubby little pieces of paper and our little coins, just laughing at how stupid we are. Think about that all the time.
Commie, traitor to our country.
Join us next time on Greater Creators, where we're going to discuss the works of other amazing creators who influenced generations. Class dismissed.